Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the trigonometric function of sine and talking about their graph. First of all, if I write here that sine function of x is equals to sine x. So here x is basically a domain. Here we put the different values. As a result, we get the output, right? For instance, describing its domain. So domain function is equals to all the real numbers, right? And if we talk about range function, so range function is basically equals to the value goes from 1 to -1 or -1 to 1. No, the value goes from -1 to 1 because one is domain while the other one is range. The value goes from -1 to 1. For instance, I'm drawing a graph here which goes something like this. This point, this is basically a x-axis while this is basically a y-axis. The graph is drawn something like this. Right, first of all, talking about these points which are intercepting at the point to this graph, here the value of the sine is 0. For instance, here we take pi. For instance, it starts from here, pi, then we take 2 pi, then we take 3 pi, then we take 4 pi, right? So here, as we can see that here we take the value which is n pi, where the sine is equals to 0. While talking about this amplitude, we take the value which is for instance, this is pi by 2, this is 3 pi by 2. Here it has some value, whether it's -1 or 1, because it exists between -1 and 1. So it has some value on these points. So here we have a formula that's 2n plus 1, which means an odd integral multiple 2n by 1. So here we get the some value. This graph shows it, and this is basically a closed interval we talk about. So this is basically a graph of the sine function. While we talk about the cos function, so cos x is f of x, which means the function of x is equals to cos x. Now we talk about graph, that what exactly the graph is. Graph is basically showing a function between input and output, input that you give and output that you get through it, your effort and its efficiency, right? For if you talk about function x is equals to cos x, same goes for it. Which is domain is equals to real number, while range is also same. Range is basically -1 to 1. If we talk about their graph, this is a closed interval, right? If we talk about their graph, it goes something like this. Okay, it has a little bit different graph, which is a bit broadened. I don't know if I will correct with it or not. Here we represent the number which has some value. For instance, here we take pi, 2 pi, then we take 3 pi, minus pi, and here we take values which is 0 on this point. This is an intersecting point, right? So for instance, here we take the integral multiple of odd number, which is 2 pi, 3 pi by 2, right? Here we take pi by 2, and same goes here in the negative sense. So here we take value which is negative. So this is basically cos functions, right? And this domain, or this